2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yep. As a basketball purist, do you know where I get that? The 2 minutes?
NBA.
Yeah. Lawrence Tanter. He's the I'm sure a lot of the announcers do it, but of course, me being a Lakers fan, I would always hear Lawrence Tanter go, 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
It's a rule, actually.
Oh, is it? So all the teams do it?
Yeah, all teams have to do it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
George, can you flip the
This
mic
is Mark.
around that way?
Oh,
I
sure.
think it's on.
Actually, we need to take off there we go. There we go. It'll be easier for you to control the mic and keep it near your mouth.
There you go.
And so this is Marc Ratner, Senior VP of Regulatory Affairs with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He'll be our co-host for the first hour. And this man's responsible for the UFC's growth. He's had a big hand in it. And we're going to chat MMA, boxing, hoops, for sure. UNLV hoops, NBA draft. Got to chat a little bit about that. So it's going to be a fun show. And, yeah, we're looking forward to
NBA
it.
draft was fun.
It sure was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave Schaller was he's over there with Philly now.
Holler, he did great. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's real excited about the future. Should be great.
Yeah. Dave Schaller, former communications VP for the UFC. He is now the head guy over there for PR for the Philadelphia 76ers. So I even tweeted that. I said, well, now that Dave Schaller chose Markel Fultz, that should leave us with, I believe, to be LeVar Ball.
They're going to look so different now.
I thought the only other guy was maybe Josh Jackson because we need defense too, but we need point guards. We need guards.
I think LeVar Ball was a done deal.
Yeah.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
All right, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us. There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMAjunkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMAjunkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMAjunkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes. RA's co-host, back east, handling all the producing duties. It's going to be Danny. Sitting to my right, our co-host for the first hour, it's Marc Ratner, Senior VP of Regulatory Affairs for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. What's up, Mark? Good to have you back.
I'm delighted to be here. It was a fun night last night watching the draft, and it's a glorious time to be in Las Vegas with the hockey. Now we have NBA Summer League coming with all these guys who got drafted. They'll all be here, so it's a fun time. And then the Raiders.
It is. The hockey kicks off in, I think, October 10th is the first game or something like that here at the new T-Mobile Arena. And they just got the kits, the uniforms. I like the colors. Were you guys on board with the colors?
I like it. Yeah.
I like it too. I think it stood out as being different.
The sweaters are nice. Yeah, I like those.
You know, when we took a tour of the T-Mobile Arena, they took us and they showed us the hockey locker rooms, but they also said, and here are the basketball locker rooms.
They did.
So they're set up to have a basketball team, a pro
Right.
team. How long do you think before that happened?
Well, that's a good question, Goes, because there was a point in time, like in the early 2000s, after Shaq and Kobe had beefed with the Lakers, the Anaheim, the Honda Center, really wanted the Clippers. They gave him a great offer, and they wanted Kobe to be a part of that and just say, hey, look, that's done. LA, the Lakers are done. They're going to give him a great offer. I wasn't so concerned with that. I really wanted to keep Kobe a Laker because I'm a Laker fan. But I thought, Clippers, get out of that shadow already. Now, that said, it was very lucrative for the old owner's name was Sterling, Donald Sterling. It was very lucrative for him. He just cared about the bottom line. He was making money. And so I think that's why he didn't want to roll the dice of getting out of Staples and getting out of the shadow of the Lakers and becoming the Orange County Clippers, the Anaheim Clippers, or the whatever Clippers. However, that said, okay, now that there's that resurgence of the Lakers and the Clippers had their run, how about moving them to Las Vegas?
Well, I want to see how the Knights do here. I want to see how the Raiders, which will sell out immediately, but
or do you want an organic team rather than a transplant team when it comes to the NBA?
No, I don't mind that. I like the Raiders. I don't want an expansion team in football or basketball if possible, but the hockey made all the sense in the world. That opened the doors, and looks like they had a good draft. And yesterday at our UFC headquarters, four of the new Knights came in with Marc-Andre Fleury, who is
the goalie for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's got 3 Super Bowl rings or championship rings. That's pretty cool. So
yeah, very cool. Well, they're rating him the 3rd greatest Penn win ever, behind Lemieux and Crosby. So highly thought of for sure. How big is that guy, or how small is he? I should say. Those goalies aren't that as big as I thought they were.
Yeah, with their pads on, they're big, but I bet he wasn't 6 foot tall, and probably maybe 175, 180.
Wow. So it'd be almost like a UFC lightweight per se.
Yeah, you could
just
say
great
that,
reactions and stuff them up and get them nice and fat so they can block that goal. Yeah. So the NBA draft was yesterday. What's the team you cheer for in the NBA?
I'm a San Antonio guy.
Okay.
I've been a Laker guy off and on, but I just love the way they play, and I was a big Tim Duncan guy. But I was real excited for the local kid Zach Collins getting drafted. To be a lottery pick's really a big thing, and to be in those first 14, so his future is secured. And as I was thinking, 3 years ago we were refereeing him in high school. And he was behind Steven Zimmerman, who got drafted, and Chase Jeter, who just transferred schools. And now he's a lottery pick. It's really saying something.
Wow.
So you get to cheer for Kawhi Leonard now after all the beatdowns he gave us at UNLV.
I do. And I watched him for San Diego State, but nobody thought he would be.
He was a different player back then,
like
right?
a first-team All-Star. No, he's tremendous.
Oh, he's amazing.
And if he doesn't get hurt, they do beat Cleveland beat Golden State that first game.
I think so too.
I'll give Goes this. He told me when Leonard got drafted, that guy's going to be good. You stopped at good. You pointed as if to say, watch this, I'm calling it. He didn't say very good. He didn't say all-star. He's arguably top 3 player in the NBA.
Absolutely.
And he's a superstar, man. Yeah. And it was because you had seen him through San Diego State. And
the system was very similar, that they played in. So I just figured he's just going to fit in perfectly with them.
Lockdown defender, and now he's become an offensive weapon as well. Because I don't think he was as good of an offensive player as he's become.
Well, the whole team, Steve Fisher and San Diego State, they kind of took the air out of the ball, and they were very possession oriented, and they had a lot of good scorers, so he didn't really have to there. But now he's kind of got to, and he's taken over.
The Lakers got Lonzo Ball, but if they weren't going to get him, and they weren't going to get Fultz, all right? So let's say there was some sort of a trade where they moved back a couple spots like Boston did. The one kid I liked was Josh Jackson because he can defend. I felt like he was the best defender I had seen, and he was drawing comparisons to Leonard. In fact, they were saying his offense is probably slightly better than what Leonard's was going into the NBA. And if he can be even half as good as Leonard offensively but still be good defensively, we'd be solid. Because the Lakers, look, we need a lot of help, but there was some times where we'd be sitting there watching going, hey, forget about the offense. Like, we're literally giving up 130 a game. And
right.
You just can't win that way.
But as I was watching the draft last night, look what we had here last December at T-Mobile. We had Kentucky playing North Carolina with Malik Monk going for 50. We had Duke UNLV, which I thought Krzyzewski ran the score up unneeded.
Tatum?
We had Tatum here, but Duke won by 50. There was no reason to win by 50. He never even substituted.
They did?
Yeah.
Wow, 50?
He beat UNLV, just beat them up. But we had UCLA playing Ohio State. We saw Ball. So we've seen a lot of the great players come through here the last few months. So
yeah.
How about the amount of trades last night?
Jimmy Butler.
And then
Minnesota got a great player in Jimmy Butler, and it didn't feel to me like they gave up a lot. Granted, when they are sending on picks, because now you have to figure Chicago's going to suck. They may actually become lottery picks. But Levine, didn't he tear his ACL? That's the dunker guy, right? The guy that can dunk. And Dunn is the other guy. Chris Dunn, I believe his name was.
Right.
I don't know that measured up to what Jimmy Butler. I mean, who's only 27 years old, an incredible scorer, mid-20 scorer, passes the ball, rebounds. I thought Minnesota got a great deal there, personally.
Yeah, they stole him. Yeah, they stole Jimmy Butler, who tremendous player. Zach LaVine, one of my favorite jumpers and great hops. But you're right, he hurt his knee, and I'm not sure the rest of his game is that good. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
How about the amount of freshmen, one-year freshmen that got
Well,
taken?
that's what I was going to ask you before we get into this MMA and boxing stuff here. We got 2 big events happening this weekend, and then, of course, MMAjunkie talk. We could talk that till Sunday, and our faces would turn blue. We'd probably still keep going. But I do want to ask you guys, that one and done has to change.
Yeah. And I
that's
think
been a topic. It either has to be I think what they're going to go with is 2 years, because they're basically showing up doing the fall semester, and they're not even reporting to spring classes until their season's over. You know, it doesn't do the institution any good in terms of the scholarship. It doesn't do I don't know that. I mean, they might as well go straight out of high school and go straight to the D League at this point and get paid, right?
I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think things are going to change, because I think they're just going to either go overseas or go to the D League. But overseas, I mean, I'm not so sure those teams are going to want those guys for a year anyway, too. So
right. Yeah.
I don't know.
And the D League.
Now it's the G League, right, or something.
G
like
League,
that.
yeah. Do you? What do you think? 2 years is going to be a good stopgap, or?
Well, I think I'm more for if you're good enough, just go. Just go to the NBA. But you'll see more kids going overseas. I think that's for sure. And the G League, as you just said, they got to get more money into it. Then.
Are you on the side of college athletics should be paying these athletes some money?
I'm undecided there. They are getting an education. I understand that side, but the leagues take advantage of these kids so much. I just don't know how to make it equal. Is a kid playing who's swimming or playing volleyball, should he get paid as much as an NBA, maybe basketball player? I don't know. There's got to be some formula. But the way it is right now is not working. What's unfortunate is that the Power 5 conferences have made everybody else second rate, and that's terrible. And as a UNLV fan, I hate to see that. Someday they've got to get into a real conference, into a big conference.
Were you guys sitting there glued to the TV, or was it in and
Little
out
bit.
as far as the draft?
I was kind of glued.
All right, check this out. Did you see the tall Finnish player who got drafted like 5th or so?
I think so.
Did you? I heard this. In Finland, if he gets stopped for a speeding ticket, the ticket is according to your annual salary. So when you were just talking about, well, you know, with the football players and the basketball players get more money than the swimmers, it made me think of that fun fact I heard yesterday. Can you believe that? So I know there's a rookie cap, obviously, but after 3 years he'll be able to make a ton of money, especially the big men that become valuable. But can you imagine getting a speeding ticket? I mean, at that point, you just either Uber everywhere or hire a driver. You just can't take that chance of writing a check in the hundreds of thousands, right?
It's true, yeah.
How silly would that be?
Yeah, that'd be a big mistake.
I have to Google that and find out if that's true or if they just happen to miss something. There's got to be a cap to that.
Hey, I think the guy you're talking about, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe Derek Jones, is that who you're talking about? He used to block a lot of shots, and he dunked, crazy dunks.
No, I'll find it. I think his name was Chris. He was 6'11". He was out of Long Beach. I mean, this guy would block a lot of shots. He could dunk. He got up and down. And I wanted him to stay one more year because I thought in the NBA, if you can block shots, if you can board, you have a future for at least 10 years. I don't care if you can only score 4 points a game. A lot of teams need defenders. And I felt like he had a future where he could still develop. I mean, I don't even know that they even get into their professional man bodies even at that point, except for like the LeBrons
I'm 38.
of the world.
I'm still waiting for that to come around.
Except for like the LeBrons of the world. So he could have still filled in and been a monster. And maybe he has to stop tracking him. But it'll hit me in just a sec. All right, Mark, let's talk about we saw you the other day when we booked the interview when Dana White and Leonard Ellerbe got together to basically announce that officially Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor would be boxing. You and I shared some quick thoughts. We did that quick little Facebook feed. But for those that haven't heard, your level of excitement at this proposed matchup. 1 to 10.
Well, it's a spectacle. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the whole promotion. I think that the press conference might be a pay-per-view event. It's going to be that crazy.
Right.
It is what it is. It's an entertainment. I have no problem with the commission approving it. I'm looking forward to it. I will be excited, and we'll see what Conor can do. I'm a big fan of Floyd. He can do everything. He's really hard to hit, and he's been off a couple years. He never gets out of shape, but he is 40 years old, so we'll see.
Well, I'm a big fan of you, but I do have to ask you something here. You don't have a problem with the commission sanctioning the bout,
it, right?
Right. In no way at all, because 49-0 versus a guy that hasn't boxed, and granted, Conor does bring some skills. Any hesitancy at all? Would this have been a slam dunk in anybody's era?
I go back to the late 50s that I remember that Pete Rademacher was fighting Floyd Patterson. Pete Rademacher was making his pro debut for the heavyweight championship. So have these fights have they happened before? Sure. Antonio Inoki versus Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali at that time. It's a spectacle. It's entertaining, and I know a lot of states would say today that they would never approve it. If it came to their state, I think they would.
Okay, and now a lot of that obviously has to do with the economic impact. Is it just something you have to overlook, the disparity in their skill sets when it comes to boxing? There's no negating that. Okay, so Conor McGregor is obviously a great combat sports athlete. He's a world champion on the regional level, on the highest level, two divisions. But when it comes to just basketball, I guess, what do you think is that criteria for I mean, in other words, I guess anything's a slam dunk at this. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because I have to give respect to Conor's skills, combat sports athlete. But still, basketball-wise, I guess what goes into that?
Well, it's tough for the commission to approve this. There's no question about it. And I think Conor maybe did some amateur boxing, but certainly he's never fought pro. And you have to take that leap. I believe that it's approvable in a lot of ways because he's such a good athlete. But maybe if it was in a different era, maybe not. But I'm for it.
Do you feel like maybe if it were a 10-round fight or an 8-round fight, it would still have the same buzz that it has right now?
I don't think so. I think it's got to be a 12-round fight. Whether it goes 12 rounds or not, who knows? But I think when they first, one of my favorite moments in boxing or MMA is when they first come out of the dressing room, and you have the crowd and they see him on the big screen, and the excitement builds and builds. It's a real special moment, and when that first bell sounds or the first when they first start, there really is a level of excitement that no other sport has, and I'm excited for it.
If Floyd Mayweather gets the victory here, he's going to break a record. But in a lot of people's eyes, they're going to say, well, we don't know if that counts, right? How do you feel about that?
Well, a lot of people felt that Andre Berto didn't deserve to fight Floyd for his 49th win. But the 50-0 it's about Marciano. But I think when Julio Sr. was fighting, he was like 87-0-1 or something. Ricardo Lopez won 44 or 45 fights in a row. Triple G, I think, is like 35-0 right now. So I don't know if he'll fight another 15 fights. I would doubt it. But it is an iconic record, and I think if Floyd looks real good, and like everybody else thinks, that if he wins, maybe he'll fight again.
I'd like to see that. Look, it's a business. I get it, but I feel like I said that if he fights Pacquiao again, they'll have a tough time convincing everybody that's going to be a great fight, just because we already saw one of them, and they're 7 years past when the first Pacquiao-Mayweather talk started. But if they can only do 1/4 of what they did, it would still be, I think, arguably top 10 lucrative fights. So 4.6 million pay-per-views, just take 1/4 of that. That's 1.15. And then the $80 million gate, $20 million gate, it's still a huge fight. So I'd like to see those two guys tangle again if Mayweather gets the competitive juices. And Pacquiao long. That fight has to happen. Of course, Pacquiao would need to win that one.
Yeah, he's fighting this with the Horn kid.
Horn, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, he's fighting in Australia. They're going to have a big crowd there. I think over 50,000 or 60,000.
Wow.
It's in an outdoor arena. When we had Ronda fight in Melbourne, we did a 55,000. So Australia's been a big market, and but I think that fight will do real well. But more importantly, it's on ESPN, and that's great for the sport.
Yeah. Mark, do you feel like there's any other fighter in the UFC that could maybe come close? Like, let's just say it wasn't Conor McGregor. Let's say it was Nate Diaz or someone like that. Is there anybody else that could drum up almost equal interest?
The Diaz brothers, they have their own following for sure, but John Jones is pretty special when he's right, and hopefully when he fights Cormier, you'll see the real John Jones in good shape. Nobody has the gift of gab to be able to talk like Conor. He's really one of the best ever, going back to Muhammad Ali. He can really talk. He's quick-witted, quick-minded, and he makes it fun.
I believe that's what's going to be that hard sell for those that just say, well, I don't want to watch it. I don't feel like it'll be competitive. I think it'll be after seeing those two chirp. I think Mayweather's going to actually say stuff back to him.
Oh, I do too.
Because everybody says, nah, Mayweather's changed. He's not that way. But he'll bring up the fact that he hasn't lost in 20 years. Conor lost 18 months ago. He's won, I think, 8 titles, right?
Something.
8 titles, yeah. And so, I mean, he has, like a lot of things that he can. And then I think he said he brags about making $300 million in one fight. So there's some stats for him to say. He's got that big O underneath the loss column. I think he's actually going to push back. When he's been pushed, he pushes back pretty hard.
Yeah, and I was just here in the sports book. I'm looking at the numbers right now, and minus 750. I thought it would be a lot more. Now I guess there's been a lot of early money on Conor, but big money will go on Floyd.
So here's what happened. That got printed about 3 days ago. I think at the start of the week.
Okay.
What does it show for Floyd? Minus 1,000?
It's minus 750.
Minus 750, okay.
Yeah.
And Conor comes back at plus 500.
Right.
Okay, then I did this yesterday, or sorry, the 20th, which was, I guess, Tuesday. And it was Mayweather down to 725, McGregor plus 475. This morning, so these get printed and they last for a few days, but if you walk actually up to the counter and get them the most current, McGregor's now down to 700, or Mayweather's down to 700. McGregor's at 450.
Wow.
So it just keeps going down. The money keeps pouring in on McGregor.
It'll change. I mean, you got 2 months, and it'll be interesting to see the last week what the numbers end up being.
You're privy to a lot more information than we are, obviously. But what I want to get is your initial reaction, whether it was an email or somebody in your ear saying this fight may happen. What did you think? Because George and I said, it'll never happen. What are we doing here? And here we are.
Well, when it was first discussed, I didn't think it would happen either. And we're talking about maybe 8 months ago, something like that. And but it was catching on with the public, and there was more and more talk. And yeah, I mean, I knew there was in the last 6 weeks there's been a lot of negotiating going on. And I went to the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame and saw Leonard there, and Floyd, who was became a Hall of Fame member, and they sort of said, hey, we might be seeing you soon. So that was my hint that the talks were really heating up. This is about 3 weeks ago. And then last week, Dana said, hey, we're having a press conference today. So that told me everything.
How about that? Yeah. I heard in Conor's manager, Audiatar, said that Lorenzo was even brought into the fold, I guess, to help negotiate this.
Yeah, that I'm not privy to. It's just I think it helps both sports in a lot of ways. There'll be a lot of negativity. There's no question about it. But the more people talk about it, the more these kind of shows, the more people hate it. They'll still watch it, and that's what it's about.
Did Dana ever ask your opinion of it all when it was just lukewarm, I guess? The idea?
No. But what we did discuss was all the boxing rules. When can you use 10-ounce gloves? How big is the ring? So, yeah, I did meet with them on that stuff.
154 on up is
It's
10 ounce. 54 on down is 8 ounce.
Right.
And then the size of the ring. Do they have a disparity in boxing as well with the size of the ring?
And not in Nevada. We passed a rule. This came from Riddick Bowe and Larry Donald. This goes way, way back. And Riddick Bowe wanted a 16-foot ring because he was the puncher and Larry Donald could move real good. And that's not fair to have the ring for the champion. So after that fight, it was in the rules at that time, we made it standard ring, 20 by 20 on the inside of the ropes. So that's for every fight.
How about that? And if I recall at that press conference, didn't Donald get socked up?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a solid shot, too. It wasn't the little shove that we saw the other day in New York. It was a good hook.
I think, or somebody threw a glass. I mean, there was something in the press conference. It was in L.A., so I didn't have any jurisdiction. They weren't licensed yet.
All right, so maybe we can reveal a little bit behind the curtain here. How much of those, let's say you've seen 100 of those, 'cause you probably have, probably even more.
Or more.
How many of them are actually pre-staged versus, like, do they ever give themselves a wink, like, hey, let's do something for the fans, or is that a lot of that? Is it mostly organic, or?
I have found it mostly organic. It started for me with the fighter James Toney, and I didn't know him. It was his first fight in Vegas. It was at the Old Sands Hotel, and he just started yelling at this guy. And I don't think that the opponent, whoever it was then, and James Toney was fighting at 160, which probably is the left side of his body weighs that much now. But I never saw the intimidation like that, and they really just almost got in the fight. No, I've had some real. Sometimes we put showgirls in between them so they couldn't reach around. Bernard Hopkins got fined a lot of money for starting something at a weigh-in.
By you?
By my commission.
How much was that fine? Do you remember?
It might have been 6 figures. I mean,
Oh wow!
Wow.
Because Tyson, you gave him $2 million, right?
Well, Tyson was
the year.
That was a $3 million.
Oh, $3 million. Okay.
$3 million. Was 10% of his $30 million purse.
Is that the biggest one you ever doled out?
Yeah.
But you said you ran into him and he laughs it off. Like it's not like there was hard feelings or anything.
Well, I've never discussed it with him.
Oh, I see.
But I've talked to him several times, and he's as respectful as can be. But here's, ironically, you bring this up. It's the 20-year anniversary right now of that bite fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's June of '97.
Wow.
And so I've been doing some interviews on that. And the best thing I can say about that fight was I didn't know what happened. Mills Lane called me in the ring. I thought that Evander had got kneed or his cup pinched him or something because he was jumping up and down. And Mills called me up and he said he bit him. And from my football officiating, he said, he bit him. I'm going to disqualify him. And I said to referee Mills, are you sure you're going to disqualify him? Is that what you want to do? Because you want the referee in football or basketball to make sure they know what they're saying. And he said, let's bring the doctor up. And then we let the fight go on, and he bit him again. And I've often wondered, and I've said this a lot of times, what would have happened after the first bite if Mike would have knocked him out?
Yeah.
He wouldn't be talking to me today. It would have been all on me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The other Bernard Hopkins, like I guess when they do get these fines, are they able to because I know you guys see each other a lot. There's boxing has a lot of conferences that they have and Hall of Fame ceremonies that they have. And is Hopkins cool? And any of the other guys you've ever fined? Or have there ever been hard feelings there?
I've been very, very blessed. I'm sure that not all fighters like the commission or like me, but overall, it's usually the entourage that's tough. The fighter themselves are very respectful. We've had arguments with Mr. Aram, with Mr. DK, as I call him. I mean, there were some confrontational times. We had to fine Zab Judah when he fought Floyd. This is before he was money. This is probably when he was still Pretty Boy. But we fined Zab, I think, $200,000 because not only did he hit him low, then he gave him a rabbit punch, and everybody jumped in the ring. But that was a big fine. So I've been through some of this.
The commission, what do they do with that money?
They don't get it. It goes into the general fund. Probably builds roads, pays teachers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The commission does not get it.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe it could be flushed back into boxing, at the young kids levels or whatever that
That'd
I've
be
seen
cool.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Golden Gloves or okay.
I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but for every ticket sold in boxing, and it's still going on, depending on what the gate is, amateur boxing gets 50 cents a ticket, or if the gate's bigger, $1 a ticket.
Oh wow.
And,
Really?
And they're allowed to
$1
get
ticket.
grants to go on trips, to put on
So you're talking about, like, let's say MGM has 15,000 seats, they get $15,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
goes in-
It doesn't go according to the gate.
No, it goes into the general fund, or goes into this amateur fund for amateur boxing. Yeah, and the commission doles it out every commission meeting. If you look at the agenda, it'll say Mighty Mites Boxing Club or whatever it might be.
Have you ever shared that with Dana so that maybe the UFC could do that?
Yeah, Dana's aware. And this and the Mayweather Conor fight, it'll come under that. So it'll be good. So
I think that's pretty cool.
I think it's awesome.
I think it is on the MMA tickets. I think that goes into that fund too.
Yeah. Is that just Nevada, or is that something
No,
that's
that's
done?
just Nevada.
Oh, any other unique?
It should be done nationwide.
Yeah, I think so
for
too.
amateur boxing.
Anything else we may not know about the commission and some of the things they do, I guess?
Well, for me, and I've actually been with the UFC 11 years now, which is
And
really hard for me to believe.
How long were you with the commission?
As an inspector and as the executive director, over 20 years.
Okay.
I was a director for 14 years. When I go to these big fights, when I was at the Ward Kovalev fight the other night, I look at the fight. I'm sitting in the stands, and I would say to myself, "Man, I used to be really involved here." And then I get a little envious, and then I wake up the next morning and very happy right where I am.
Now, it seemed like, I may have railroaded you there. You were going to maybe I asked you if there's anything else that's unique about the money that the commission makes, where they've been able to dole it out to kids or fund, some programs or anything
now
like
it's
that.
different than in my time, in the fact that the commission is self-funded, which means that they get a certain percentage of what they bring in. I think it's 2%. And they're able to hire more employees now. They've just moved over on Sahara to a much bigger office, and not in the state building. And they're going to have the best 3 weeks of any commission in the world. They're going to have Triple G and Canelo and Conor and Floyd within 3 weeks of each other. So that's pretty big.
That is crazy. Yeah, I still can't believe we're in it. We're doing it.
know.
All right, this is Marc Ratner from the UFC, former NSAC director, and you're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. On our way out here, because we're gonna take this break, it's Chris Wood.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was wrong, except I still think before Finley prep,
Did block
he
a
may
lot
have
of
been
shots.
from L.A., the Long Beach Poly area or whatever. And I thought that guy was going to be in the NBA for a while because I thought he was an excellent shot blocker and rebounder, and he hustled.
But that's all he was.
Yeah.
I remember him, sure.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back after this break, folks. Stay close.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been. And because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
All right, we're back. We're joined by Marc Ratner from the UFC here. We're jumping around from topic to topic, but that's what we can do because this gentleman's refereed football in the high school level. Did you do college as well, Mark?
I did.
College
20 years of Division I football, and my last game was the Cotton Bowl with
That's
Alabama
right.
and Texas Tech. So that was.
Yeah, and then he's been the NSAC director. You were an officer. Now you're with the UFC.
How about shot clock operator for the last 35 years?
I've seen that. Yeah, world traveler. So we're jumping around here. My high school, Mater Dei, has just signed on to play Gorman, which was the #1 team last year, right?
For the last 3 years, it's been the number one team.
They got all of them?
Yeah, for the last 3 years, they've been the USA high school #1 team.
Yeah, so Mater Dei, I think Gorman goes that way. They play Mater Dei in Southern California, probably be like Anaheim Stadium or something like that, because we don't have an actual stadium on campus. And then we come the following year. But you were just telling me 2 good teams are headed to the stadium here in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
De La Salle
and DeMatha out of Maryland or Washington, D.C., one of those. And De La Salle, who I think they had a movie about. They won like 150 games in a row. And they're coming here. That'll be a big, big game. High school football in this stadium, Fertitta Field, has been beautiful. Been great. ESPN's been here, Fox Sports, and nationwide broadcast. It's very cool. And the quarterback from Gorman last year is going to go to Ohio State, or is already there, and Tate Marnell. So that's saying something.
Boy, we were talking about college athletes getting paid, and of course I don't want to imply I want high school athletes to get paid or nothing like that, or who knows if they are, but it just seems to be big business. How about the fact that a lot of them have huge apparel sponsors too?
Yeah.
Like I know Mater Dei's got Nike. We've had them for the last few years, and this all started with basketball, but the football program became so big they also get some support there too.
No, big business, and when you're on TV, yeah, and those uniforms are expensive too.
We caught you on the right day because you're heading to Oklahoma today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow to OK City. What makes me really happy, and not to change the subject again, but one of my favorite guys from the WWE, J.R. Ross, is going to be our guest there.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. He's
awesome. Incredible.
He's such a great guy. So good old J.R. will be there, but Chiesa's fighting, and it's going to be nice events on a Sunday afternoon there, and Sunday night will be on FS1 Sports, and
right.
Yeah, so
they are on FS1. They're going to start off on the Fight Pass. They got 3 fights there. Then they move to Fox Sports 2. That one will start at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then the main card on Fox Sports, which will be on Fox Sports 1, that's 9 p.m. Eastern time, and you'll get 6 of those fights on a Sunday offering, headlined by Chiesa and Kevin Lee. And of course, we were talking about these press conferences.
Yeah, you
that
already
are
saw
animated.
that.
Yeah. One thing I didn't ask you was, are you a fan of those fisticuffs and?
Not at all.
No. Okay.
No, because the worst thing you could ever do is lose a fight.
Lose the fight
at a press conference or a weigh-in. We always tell these guys, hey, the whole idea is to get paid to fight. You're a professional.
Right.
But sometimes
not even a shove.
No, I'm against that.
What about the heads coming together?
I'm personally against that. Though you mentioned Dave Schaller before, his big claim to fame was Cormier and John Jones getting knocked off the stage when but you don't want that, and the commission fined both of those guys for that. It happened in the MGM lobby, and then, I mean that's it's what you don't want. You want they can say stuff, but anytime they touch each other, I'm against.
You're gonna hate me. I like it. I don't want the fight to get disqualified, and I definitely don't want anyone in the audience to get hurt. So like the Diaz brothers and McGregor, the tossing of the bottles.
The shoe got thrown in that Cormier.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see an actual fight. The shove, I don't mind. Like, do you remember when Koscheck shoved Diego Sanchez?
He almost went off the stage
in Houston.
Yeah, it was in Houston, and I mean,
it was Diego that shoved him.
Yeah,
so
suppose he goes
Diego
off the stage,
him,
and somebody gets hurt or hurts their ankle. Yeah, it's just.
I'm good with a shove, except in the stage setting, which is usually what it is. I definitely don't want to see a punch. I do like face-to-face. I'm not a big fan of the heads coming together. As much as I don't mind the shove, I feel like a shove, everyone's going to survive that. But the actual heads coming together, I don't know, man, because just someone's going to push back, and then all of a sudden you're going to get that laceration fights off. You know
I
what
mean, we've even seen with the females. We've seen Valentina and Amanda, Rhonda and Holly.
Yeah.
They've kind of got
But
into
here's
it
what's
too.
happening, though. That's what gets replay on this big screen and on the televisions. And so I think the fighters realize that, and sometimes the buzz around their social media, maybe the paycheck's a little bigger, more pay-per-views, more this, more that. So it's like, I don't know if there's probably dumbasses like me encouraging them to do it, but you know what I mean? It's like there's this social peer pressure to have something like a fight build-up.
No, there's a fine line there, and but I guess as a former regulator, I'm against it.
And what was your scariest moment being at a weigh-in or pre or post-fight, getting in between? Did you ever come close to a Schaller moment yourself?
No. One of my philosophies was to never be in front of the scale. Now, when we have digital scales, you can. So I was always below the fighters when they were getting on the scale, and I had the meat scale, and I could move it around. But no, I had so many big weigh-ins. Lennox and Evander and Oscar and Trinidad was pretty heated. And
Here at Mandalay Bay, right?
Right. Fernando Vargas and Oscar.
So you never got lost in the pushing and shoving?
No, I mean I heard a few F-bombs, but maybe in Spanish too. I don't know.
Was there ever one that you predicted that you just knew there's no way we can get these two without something happening?
No, but there was one where I think it was a Hasim Rockman fight, maybe with Lennox. And we put something in between them so they couldn't touch each other.
Oh.
This was after Hasim had knocked Lennox out in South Africa or something. So
What'd you put in between them?
Yeah, I know it was like maybe the dais, or I mean something where they couldn't touch each other.
And all your travels with the UFC, have you ever had to be just the person that's in between the fighters? I've seen PR people do it. You know, when Dana can't get to it, I've seen the matchmakers do it. But
one time, Dana said, "Listen, it was Tito and somebody. It was one of his last fights, and Dana didn't. They were feuding in those days." And he said they won't start anything if you're in the middle. So I got between them, and I think Tito has something on his shirt that Dana's my bitch or something.
Oh,
like that.
so okay,
Yeah.
early 2000s kind of.
Yeah, it had to be a while ago. Well, it had to be after 2006. So.
And just the best thing is to just let them know from the beginning, right? Instead of letting, I guess, that friction mount up.
Well, we have some real security on stage now. I mean, former policemen that usually can catch him. Even when the Chiesa thing, you saw these guys rush in before anything else happened. But I think when you see Cormier Jones, you'll have plenty of people around him, so this doesn't happen again.
Do the girls chirp as much as the guys, or is it just the B word mostly?
Yeah, it's the same kind of trash talk. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's crazy. That's a crazy atmosphere. Chiesa fights Lee. Tim Boach versus Johnny Hendricks. Johnny Hendricks, of course, moving up. He did that about a year and a half ago, and he's actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, Johnny Hendricks is a tremendous fighter. Yeah, he needs to get back to himself again, but I look forward to that fight.
BJ Penn. A lot of people aren't talking about this, but he's on this card versus Dennis Siever.
Fun under the radar a little bit.
He'll be featured on the main card. His last two fights, he hasn't looked great, obviously, but he's a legend in the sport.
Sweet guy. I really like
Hall
him a
of
lot.
Famer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
In a few weeks, we have International Fight Week here in Las Vegas. Justin Gaethje comes over from World Series of Fighting. He was their last champion at the lightweight division, and he will be fighting Michael Johnson. That's the main event for the tough finale.
Yeah.
And then we have Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes, along with.
I'm getting excited.
Why aren't we talking about Lawler versus Cowboy? People should be getting excited about that one. That's like a great fight booking right there.
Tremendous fight, and certainly this Overeem Verdun, these two big heavyweights that. So no, that's a tremendous card. I'm looking forward to that. And Amanda Nunes, she's for real. She can punch, she can grapple, and we'll see how Valentina does. So yeah, that's a nice card, and it's July 8th. It's not that far away.
Earlier, you said you're very happy to be where you are. You know, you were telling us the story about waking up and saying that. Why is it that I guess MMA, you fell in love with it and are still in love with it after 11 years? And you clearly made that distinction, I guess. Was it just your job with the UFC in what you do versus what you did in boxing, or is it more of a love of MMA for boxing? But I guess I wanted to expand on that.
Well, in real life, I have 2 children, and I love them both. And for me, in my professional life, boxing's my older child, MMA is my younger child, and I totally disagree when people say you have to not like one to like the other. And maybe that's part of the allure of the May-Mac fight, that some people want to see what sport's better, which is silly. They're 2 different sports, and I really have loved every moment of my MMA job, of the UFC job. I've traveled around the world. I'm going to Scotland, and I think it's July 8th or July 12th, something like that, right after International Fight Week. Then I'm going to Long Island. There's a fight we haven't talked about.
Weidman Gastelum.
Weidman and Kevin Gastelum in Long Island at the Nassau Coliseum. It's just fight after fight after fight. Sometimes some of these long flights is tough. I didn't go to Singapore or New Zealand, but now I'll go to Oak City and Anaheim and New York. And
Did you almost tell Lorenzo and Dana no, that you weren't interested in the job?
It was a real hard decision because it took me a couple months, and finally Lorenzo said to me, "Are you coming or not?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I had one last fight. I think it was Shane, or no, it was Oscar in Mayorga, Cinco de Mayo 2006, and then the next Monday there I was.
Was it
UFC.
an early? Was it at first a no, or was it let me think about it, and that took 2 months?
We talked at the end of 2005. Then we met again, Dana, Lorenzo, and I think in February, and then I had maybe a Mosley Vargas fight coming up. I said, let's talk again after that fight. And then we came to a decision. I think it was in March, and I said, De La Hoya's fighting Mayorga. That'll be the big fight of the summer. I'll come after that.
Wow, that's cool, huh?
Yeah. And amazing memory you have, too, just putting it all
all
together.
For an old guy here.
George forgot a question he was asking yesterday
I
in the
don't
middle of the question.
I did. I was in the middle of the question. I forgot it. I probably couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast. I could tell you what I had today. It was a great egg sandwich, but I couldn't tell you what I did yesterday. I don't know if it's – I don't compartmentalize.
It's too much information that comes out on this show at one time to remember everything.
No, sometimes I get confused and I forget. Yeah, I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday either. So
you're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. We're gonna take the second break. We have Marc Ratner in the house here, and we're jumping everywhere, man. We're talking boxing, MMA, football, basketball. It has been a ton of fun. Stay close. We'll be right back.
With a little ZZ Top for me though too. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
are the stretch marks on the underbelly of the MMA community. But hey, stretch marks are the new tats. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
We're running out of time here, but just to recap, we have some great fights ahead of us, including Nunes and Shevchenko during International Fight Week, Lawler and Cowboy during International Fight Week, Verdum and Overeem is going to be a good one. This weekend, of course, is Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Lee, and Marc Ratner will be there. Triple G finally against Canelo, Mayweather, and McGregor. That's happening a couple weeks before that. I mean, really some great times to be a fan of, all combat sports in general. And then, of course, the Golden Knights start in October. The Raiders are apparently coming, and whether they come or not, I think we're getting the stadium, and I think that's going to be phenomenal. That's what I'm excited about the most.
They're coming, and like I said earlier, that NBA Summer League, I mean, they get 5,000 to 6,000 a day there, and you get to see all these kids who were just drafted. No, it's a glorious time to be here in Las Vegas.
For sure. And lastly, one thing you told us. Now we're just going to jump out of MMA for a sec. You said we're probably the only. You're probably the only guy we know that actually saw the Beatles here in Las Vegas. What year was that?
I think it was 64 or 65, and I just remember very vividly. I couldn't hear one song to the next because the young girls were shrieking so loud.
Yeah, and so did it look like they were putting out a good show? Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was
There's a lot of great bands. They say concerts are not that good, and then there's other bands where the album's not that great, but they're like, oh man, but the guy can put on a show.
Where was it at?
At the old Las Vegas Convention Center.
Oh wow.
So no longer there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's this Las Vegas Convention Center? Is that just a newer one?
Well,
location,
they used to have what they had called the Rotunda, where UNLV played for all those years before Thomas and Mack.
Very interesting. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. At Marc Ratner UFC is his Twitter handle, and you can see all of his travels there, all of his pictures. Westminster Abbey, he was there. Belfast, where they made the Titanic. So we love following you, and we love having you on the show. Thanks again for stopping by. We're not going to wait that long for next time. Hopefully we'll do it again
Lots
soon.
of fun, and you went from ZZ Top to Elvis without even a stop. And
that's Danny. I got to give credit to Danny.
And I have seen Elvis too. So.
Fat Elvis or the skinny Elvis? Both?
I saw both. Absolutely.
All right, folks. When we come back, we'll talk to Carlos Silva and former UFC middleweight champion Rich Franklin. Join us too. Stay close.
Hall & Oates?
I do.
Oh, Hall & Oates are the shit.
That's why I'm letting it play out.
They're very underrated. They still play it too.
All right, here we go. It's the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. Even though Marc Ratner is like cool as a cucumber, man, I'm jacked. Like that was fun to have him there and just talk about the history. Yeah, there's just I felt like I even cut him off on a couple just the follow-ups. I was so antsy to segue, you know, off of his answers and
going to talk about rules and all that stuff. There's so much, but I think we will get him back sooner than later.
There's probably if we go in blog form, there's probably like 6 to 8 recaps there of just the things that he said, his opinions that he shared, and you know it was a good time. Him coming over to the UFC was huge for the UFC. He brought stability. He brought a great reputation, just as they were starting to form, you know, their reputation as a legitimate sports, you know, franchise, sports league. And I remember that hiring sent a lot of waves. They basically took him. He was the Nevada State Athletic Director, where Bob Bennett is right now, where Keith Kaiser was up until a few years ago. So
Keith was an attorney, right?
He helped him. Keith is an attorney, yeah. He helped them now hit the road and help the sport get regulated in all 50 states. Although I'm hearing Connecticut, it may be illegal again, but he got to the point where all the provinces in Canada and all the states in the United States could legally put on a mixed martial arts bout. Is Brian from Louisville, Kentucky still on hold, Danny?
He is, and Carlos is on hold.
Oh, Carlos is ready to go. Okay. All right, cool. Well, then, Brian, see, that's the price you pay, man. You're a new guy. You got to wait a little bit because we got these superstars that we interview. And up next is Carlos Silva, formerly of the World Series of Fighting. It's now called the Professional Fighters League, and he's the president of event and business operations. Welcome, Carlos. Welcome back to the show, Carlos. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, guys?
Good, good. Thank you for asking. Great to have you on because I'll tell you what, we've had 4 of your fighters on this week: Fitch, Foster, High, and Carlos Fodor, and we were talking about the event that you have on June 30th, which we definitely will touch on. But the one thing we haven't been able to straighten out yet is PFL and its future as far as regular season and playoffs and this $1 million paydays for some of these fighters that's got us fired up, man. We're really excited. Can you help us break that down, how that's going to work out?
Sure. So let's talk January 2018.
Okay.
We've got 7 weight classes from 135 to heavyweight. We got 12 fighters in each weight class. They're going to fight between January and August in the regular season. Each fighter is going to get 3 bouts during the regular season. They're going to get points for wins and losses, for knockout submissions, for first round, second round, and third round. And at the end of August, we're going to look at all the points, look at some tiebreakers, and we're going to take the top 8 by points in each weight class, and they're going to make it into the playoffs.
Wow.
Damn.
They're going to start in October. The playoffs are going to be one night, fight twice, win twice. They're going to fight in the quarterfinals by seed, one versus 8, 2 versus 7, etc. And then they're going to get a rest, and they're going to fight in the semifinals later that evening. And the 2 that become victorious out of the semifinals are going to take off the rest of October and November and go into the championship night in December. And on that championship night, there'll be 7 weight classes, and each of those championship nights, the winner will make $1 million. It'll be a $10 million total prize money for the entire league.
Look at you guys. Okay. That's pretty legit. All right, I gotta sift through all this, unpack all this. In January 2018, 7 different weight classes from 135 to heavyweight. We'll start a regular season. There'll be 12 fighters, and the bouts will be selected, I guess, by your matchmaker as far as who fights who. But as if the fighter wins, there's
you guys know Ray?
Ray Seffel. He's the only one that'll be chosen, or is there like a committee?
Look, Ray's got his team. I'm on Ray's team too, but Ray will be doing the matchups just like he always has.
Okay. And in between January and August, how many events will you have in between January and August for all these fights?
There'll be 18 events from January to August that'll comprise the regular season.
All North America states.
In 2018, North America, yes.
Stateside events. Okay. And there'll be, let's see here, each division will start off with 12 fighters. They'll each have 3 bouts. And so then they're going to have like a point system, kind of like in soccer, the English Premier League. Like if you get a win, you get a certain amount of points. And then in addition to the win, if you get a finish, you get even more points.
Correct.
And if it's first round finish, you get more points than a third round finish, or as long as you get the finish, that's all? Like, do you get more for finishing quicker?
Right now, yes. It'll be based on a first round, second round, or third round, and also if it goes to a decision, a unanimous decision versus a split decision. So not unlike a hockey game where in a tie you get some points for a tie. If you have a split decision and you get a loss, you'll actually get a point.
The guys get a couple months off, and they come back in October where the top 8 in each division will start a playoff, and in the first event in October, you're going to have two fights in one night for each one of the 8 quarterfinalists.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, no, it'll be elimination. It'll be a bracket. So you go into the quarters. The winners of the quarters will advance to the semis. That'll be no less than 30 minutes later. The quarterfinals will only be 2 rounds. Mm-hmm. The semifinals will be 3 rounds, so that we'll keep them under the 5-round limit, which most commissions require 25 minutes of fighting in any one night. Looks
like to me, if you win 6 fights, you win $1 million is what this boils down to.
You're good at math.
I love the point system, George. That's awesome.
Pretty legit. Yeah, it's different. It's different. My mind's going in a bunch of directions, trying to figure this out. But this is pretty damn interesting. Yeah, I got to give it up. All right, Carlos Silva, president of Professional Fighters League, joining us here on MMAjunkie Radio, shedding some light on the direction of PFL in 2018. Now, don't forget, they have an event on June 30th in Daytona Beach, Florida, headlined by John Fitch and Brian Foster. The fights will take place on the field inside of the racetrack after a NASCAR race, so that'll be an interesting twist there. And they have some really, really good fights lined up. Carlos Fodor also mixing it up with Jason High. But this right here is 2018 regular season playoff tournament with $1 million prize in 7 different weight classes. This is great stuff. All right, Goes, what do you have for Carlos Silva?
Carlos, maybe you can give us a little behind the scenes here. Something like this, an idea, when it's hatched, how long is the process from the time you get the idea to you can all shake hands in a room and say, this is exactly how we want it to go down, let's move forward?
That's a great question. We started looking at how to hatch the idea with the Professional Fighters League really sort of fall of last year. And, we had a great event at Madison Square Garden, World Series of Fighting 34 in New York City. It was great. But, even at that point, we were already starting to think a little bit about how we would start to really put a sport around this. And I think really the most important, all 3 words in Professional Fighters League are important, but league is very important. We wanted to create a league. We wanted to create a league for the fighters. We wanted to give them the ability to understand when they would fight and give them some consistency. We know that fans understand a regular season, a playoff, and a championship. We thought that was important. And we also thought for MMA as a sport, to really dub it as a sport, it needed this league structure. So we started to put it together in the fall. We've been working through it diligently at the league level, trying to understand the point system, how many times the fighters would fight, how many events, etc. And a lot of hard work, but we've got the structure 1.0 in place, and it'll launch in January. And we're going to have a lot of events between now and then, with Daytona being an event a week from today that is also going to test out some of the things that we've done and that we're thinking about, and certainly venues. Partnership with places like International Speedway Corp and the track, and bringing NASCAR fans together with MMA fans, we think is another underlying principle that would we hope that this pilot will launch us into that during the league structure next year as well.
What percentage would you say you're at as far as having all the competitors for the tournament?
Well, we've got over 100 fighters, under contract right now. So I really think it's Ray and the team are looking at how the matchups work and who the final roster should be. That roster's could be filled out today, but I think he's looking very diligently on every slot from 1 to 12 so that we can put the best roster together for 2018. And I think between now and September, that'll be finalized.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship with NASCAR and the idea, who came up with it? And because as soon as I heard it, I thought, man, I'm not the biggest of NASCAR fans, but if I went to a race and they told me there was going to be a fight right after, I'm in.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we felt the same way, and we had worked with Chicago going back almost 2 years. We were working with Phoenix. A good friend of mine, Brian Sperber's out there at Phoenix International Raceway, and we've been working on this for a long time with the folks at ISC, which is the parent company of all of those tracks, and the ones that own Daytona and Chicago and Phoenix and a number of other tracks. And we were finally able to get down to Daytona. We met with Joey Chitwood, we met with Chip Weil, with Chris Schwartz, all great guys on the Daytona ISC side, and we're finally able to put it together. We figured out all the requirements, the logistics, setting up the cage. It's going to be right in the fan zone that's inside the infield, right next to the start-finish line. The Coca-Cola 250 is going to be on the track on Friday night. At the end of that race, they're going to open up 6 gates in the grandstand, and fans are going to walk across the Daytona Speedway, down the banking, into the fan zone area to watch 4 great fights, with Fitch and Foster as the main event. It's just going to be, I think, an epic night for race fans and fight fans.
Is this the only fight card before we get to the regular season next year, or will there be other PFLs before then in 2017?
No, we've got Professional Fighters League events scheduled right now. We've got Daytona on June 30th. We're going to be in Everett, Washington on July 29th. We're going to be in Las Vegas in October, and then we're going to be here in Washington, D.C. in November. So there's going to be 4 more events, all exciting, all with our partners with NBC Sports. Obviously, the NASCAR race on Friday nights on NBC Sports Network, and then they're going to throw it directly to the fight at around 10:15, also on NBC Sports Network.
What can you tell us about either second place or what you anticipate will be any form of a pay structure for anyone that doesn't win the tournament?
I can't really tell you anything more. We're actually going to release all of those things as we get the final roster together, and we're going to release all the sort of rules and regulations and the pay structure. So that'll be coming a little later towards the end of the summer. I'm happy to jump on the line with you guys as always and give you the scoop.
What about, does the same apply for points? Is that something we'll have to wait for, or can you share that with us right now? How many points you get?
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, same. We're gonna release kind of the league booklet and put all that together. We're just concentrating on getting through Daytona. As you know, Daytona is a little bit of a different event. It's outside. There's some other logistical issues that adds to the excitement. It kind of feels like our winter classic, if you will, inside of this awesome arena called Daytona International Speedway. So we're just getting through all that, and then I think we'll get to all the final details as we get to the Everett, Washington, and the Las Vegas event.
I'm sure you have a great team and you've covered this, but just in case there's a 0.0001% that you haven't, I went to an outdoor event that was close to the beach. It was in L.A., and the canvas is really important. If it's not a certain type of material, the fighters are slipping a lot because of the condensation. So I'm sure you guys have covered it, but in case you haven't, jot that one down, Carlos, because I'm telling you, these fighters were slipping, and I was afraid someone was going to tear a knee ligament that night.
No, we've talked. Yeah, that's the really great thing about having Ray Seppa running fighter operations. He's fought in all over the world in all kinds of different environments, and he understands that as much as anyone. So we have paid special attention to that. The cage will have a tent on it and be covered, so that will help a little bit under the lights and having it tented. But we've tried to look at every detail to make sure it's safe and a good environment for the fighters and the fans, for sure.
Now, NBC Sports is basically your partner throughout this whole process, or will any of their other channels be involved, or any form of digital platform?
You know, as you know, we've been with NBC Sports for years, and so our fights are live on NBC Sports Network and at times on Big NBC, like the Madison Square Garden event was. And then we stream all of our undercards. I mean, the fight on Friday night on June 30th is a little bit different because the undercard really for that fight is the Coca-Cola 250. Mm-hmm. It's the race, and that's really the undercard. And then we go from that race straight into our live broadcast on NBCSN. Now, in the case of Everett and Las Vegas, we'll be a little more traditional. We'll have our undercard. We stream it. You know, we stream it worldwide right now from ProfessionalFightersLeague.com, and NBC also puts it on their digital platforms. Mm-hmm. And it's all free.
The team that we came to know, you know, you mentioned Ray as the matchmaker, and of course we've seen a lot of different announced teams along the way. A good friend of ours, Joey Varner's, worked for you in the past. But my question is, will a lot of those people, the same familiar faces, be part of Professional Fighters League going forward too?
Absolutely. I mean, the desk this next week in Daytona's a lot of familiar faces. We've got Todd as our host. You know, Todd's done so many of our fights for us on the NBC side. We got Randy Couture and Kayla Harrison that are going to be sitting at the table with him. And then a guy that's been with us really since the beginning, Boss Rutan, who we love, will also be doing a lot of the backstage work as well as the in-cage post-fight interviews. So, you know, look, being the Hall of Famer and champion that he is, it's great to have him talking directly to the fighters and giving us his analysis.
What brought on the change from World Series of Fighting to Professional Fighters League?
Yeah, I really think it was that format change. I think it was more of a format change than it really was a name change. Mm-hmm. And as we started to look at the format and understand what the format was, we wanted to come up with a name that really reflected the new sport and season and league format. And that's really when we came up with the Professional Fighters League. We also wanted to make sure that it was a league for the fighters, and that's why it's called Professional Fighters League and not Professional Fight League. Mm-hmm. We're trying to put fighters first. You know, one small detail that I forgot is when Professional Fighters League launches in January, we're going to be eliminating elbows as part of the league structure because we want to, you know, put fighters first. Elbows cuts create sutures and give downtime to the fighters. So that's another feature that Ray and the team have come up with.
Well, for sure, I support that, especially in the one-night tournament. Uh-huh. As far as throughout the event, I mean, that reminds me of Strikeforce. That's the way Strikeforce used to function. Many people are in favor of that. Others aren't, and it's usually, of course, people that are riding on top. You know, the wrestlers, they definitely want those, and so I've felt both sides, but for a tournament, I remember Bellator, same thing. They didn't like the elbows, and neither did I in a tournament like that.
I think in the final though you can do it, right? Can you do that in the final though?
Is that basically no elbows throughout the whole season, or would you be able to do that in your finals at the end of the year?
No elbows throughout the whole season, guys. That's a decision that Ray and the team have made, and we think it's a good one for the fighters.
Very interesting. All right. Well, wow. Okay, now you really, really shed a lot of light here and got me pumped up, man. I could honestly see a lot of fighters, you know, that they're gonna enter free agency. Every day we find out, you know, different fighters on their last contract or they're close or this or that. But this is very appealing. 6 fights and $1 million prize out there. That's huge, Carlos.
I think it's huge. We're excited about it, and it's going to be great.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe, like 5 years ago, this was talked about. Is this the same $1 million format that was talked about when World Series was just going to start, or was this piggybacking off that? Because I remember hearing a lot of fighters were going to do that.
Yeah, if Ray was on the phone with us now, he'd tell you that a lot of these ideas were things that were in his brain when him and a few others hatched World Series of Fighting. So we've tried to take a lot of those things that were in his brain. We've looked at NASCAR. We've looked at every league point structure from Formula One to NASCAR to skiing to the FedEx Cup, and looked at all the different point structures and how they worked, and I think we've come up with a great format.
Yeah, I've seen it. Believe it or not, in fantasy fighting, and they can make it so that it's very interesting. Now across the regular season, I'm blending what I know from the English Premier League, which I'm a huge fan of, along with fantasy fighting. That point system is. I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to get to the point like they're going to be a lot of fighters are going to be put in a position where to qualify.
They have to adjust, right?
Oh yeah, they're going to have to adjust and fight a certain way. They're going to have to basically go for it. And the one thing you can't do in fighting is you can't just shift gears and downshift and say, well, now I think I'll just cruise to victory. You can't just do that either. I mean, I'm sure there's some instances where something like that's happened, but for the most part, entering the fight, you know that the other guy's coming after you.
Corners are going to have to be very savvy,
it's
too,
going to be
rounds.
really, really interesting with this point structure. So I can't wait to see the unveiling. You said in a few weeks we'll know. We'll have a little bit of your handbook ready to go?
We'll have it this summer. We'll have it this summer. We're going to get through Daytona. As I mentioned, we're going to be in Everett, Washington on July 29th. So, basically over the next, 4 to 6 weeks, we'll be rolling that stuff out.
Carlos, you've had about a 3-year run now in MMA. Have you enjoyed your time in MMA? I know there's been some challenges, but overall, how would you assess, your career in MMA and with World Series now with Professional Fighters League?
I've had a great time. It's an amazing sport. I think, look, since I joined, I started to look at these fighters as great athletes. I really think they're some of the greatest athletes on the planet. I'm a big endurance guy. I train often. I do a lot of big races. I see what these athletes go through in the cage just from an endurance standpoint. I have nothing but respect for them. Thoroughly enjoyed working with Ray Seffel and the team to build this, and I've always felt like we needed to move from promotion to sport, and I really think with everything that's gone on in MMA in the last 15 years, the time is right for the Professional Fighters League. So I'm just happy and blessed to be part of it. Really am.
Thank you very much for doing the show. We appreciate it. And folks, do not forget, on June 30th, MSNBC, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Start Time for PFL 1, which is Professional Fighters League, first edition, their debut show with John Fitch and Brian Foster in the main event of that 4-fight main card. It happens again on June 30th, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it as we lead up to that event in 1 week. Thank you, Carlos, for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Look forward to talking again soon.
All right. Nice talking to you, too. Have a nice weekend. And, folks, you can follow Carlos Silva on Twitter at Carlos Silva. How about that, goes?
A lot of information there, right?
Yeah. I mean, okay, now this
Think
makes
about
some
this, George.
sense.
Let's say you're behind in points, right? And maybe a unanimous decision is what gets you enough points to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But say you lost round 2.
You have to go for the
make
finish.
that decision as a corner man. Tell your guy, look, you could win this fight, but you're not going to advance. You got to finish him.
In the English Premier League, there's people that get relegated to the championship, which is like a second division, I guess. And that fall is, you basically don't get to compete on the high level of the Premier League. And I don't know how many times there's been goal differential or just 1 point from relegation. So same thing here. You're either in the tournament that can net you $1 million or not. So the regular season will be interesting. Of course, this all has to play out. We got to see how it goes. But when it just jumped out at me and I was writing as fast as I could, thought it was pretty interesting to whatever they were holding on to, because we didn't know much about it. Now that I'm hearing it, and you know what? Adding that to just the growth of Bellator and One Championship and now LFA and of course the UFC and what they do, it's just a whole different dynamic. And seeing if this works out, like Carlos says, let's treat it like a sports league, like we see the other sports doing. I'm all for it. I'm all for trying stuff.
Too.
When Bjorn came aboard with those tournaments, at first I was like, wow, the guy's going to be healthy. We're going to make it. And they got really lucky where they had a lot of health. A lot of stars came through it. One of their stars is on that main card, Michael Chandler. But the one thing I'll say is you could never argue with, well, who's fighting in the finals. There was no politics. The guys that earned it, the guys that won fights, we're there. So that was very cool. All right, we got to take this break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93. We'll come back. We'll talk to former UFC middleweight champ and now an executive out at One Championship, Rich Franklin. He's the VP out there at One Championship. And we'll wrap with him when we come back after this break.
They can drink Mentos-flavored Diet Coke without their stomachs giving a single fuck. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
All right, we're going to get right into it here. We have former UFC middleweight champion and current VP over at One Championship, Rich Franklin, who could be followed on Twitter at Rich Franklin. What's up, Ace? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm doing all right, man. A rainy day in Cincinnati here, but otherwise everything is great, man.
It's June. It's like 100 degrees in the rest of the country, and you guys are the only ones with rain.
Yeah, I think like the April showers kind of I don't know if they went on timeout or whatever, but it's pouring down cats and dogs here. It's crazy.
Do they still call you Ace, by the way, and are you known as Ace in Asia?
Yeah, some of my coworkers, they just kind of refer that. They're used to hearing that, I guess, from my career and whatnot. And yeah, I'll have fans that'll come up to me and say that same thing, like as if that's just my name. So I answer to it.
All right. Well, it's great to have you on the show, and I do want to go backwards here. We are going to finish up with talking about One Championship and that outstanding promotion out there in Asia. But first of all, Marc Ratner was a guest of ours here in studio, and he wanted us to pass on his regards to you. He really likes you, and he wanted us to say hello to you on his behalf.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Mark, he's an outstanding individual, man. I've known that guy for a long time, obviously, because of my career, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. I miss him, so I have to reach out to him and say hello. Thanks for giving me that message.
Yeah, no worries. And then the other thing is, even before we booked this interview with Lauren Mack, your name had popped up. So we'll just get this out of the way, and then again, we'll go to one championship. For one, I remember you had one fight left on your contract. You said you wanted to see it out, and then one day you just woke up and told the world, "Hey, I'm retired." But again, people unretire, and recently Chuck Liddell had talked about, his name had been out there, and Vitor Belfort, he's coming to a close with his career. He's talking about a Legends League. But anyway, your name popped up a lot on our show. If Liddell were to ever run it back, we thought your name might work out. Would that interest you at all? First of all, just fighting again? Have you ever gotten those competitive juices flowing? And if so, a fight with Liddell, what would you think of something like that?
Well, I think about competing all the time. I miss it. When people ask me, "Do you miss your career?" And the main thing I miss is not necessarily walking into the arena and all that kind of stuff and having your hand raised, but I miss the brotherhood that I had of prepping for a fight. And so, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think about it all the time. Is it possible that I could come back? I mean, anything's possible, but is it probable? Not likely. I've never really been interested in a Champions League or a Legends League, just because once you climb to the top of Everest, you wouldn't say, "Hey, I just want to go back to Mount Everest and climb up to base camp this time." It just doesn't work that way. So I've never really been interested in a Legends League, but with the right kind of matchup and fight could definitely pique my interest. It's just not probable. So I don't want to give anybody any real false hope out there as if I'm definitely coming back or anything.
All right, so the door's not completely closed. We get it. But in the meantime, it doesn't sound like you're in no form of a training camp or anxious to start any form of a training camp. That's for sure.
No. I mean, listen, I train every single day of my life. I'm in the gym pretty much every day. It's a lifestyle that I've lived. I lived that before I competed, which is what got me into competition, and I continue to live that outside of competition. As far as to physically look at me, I'm in as good a shape right now as I am when I'm probably actually in better shape, my body anyway, feeling the way that it feels, than I was in my fight career. Now, obviously, I'm not in peak physical condition because you just can't maintain that kind of conditioning throughout your life. You have to pick and choose and when to peak and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I keep myself in shape. It's how I live, man.
You guys have been cranking out the shows out in one championship in Asia. It looks like you're scheduled for about 20 or maybe even 24. There's still at least 12, 14 more to go this year. But Asia's huge as well. Where is it blowing up the most? Definitely. Is it basically everywhere in Asia, or is there just specific countries that are just, way bigger than the others?
It is. It's blowing up just simultaneously everywhere. Obviously, China's a big market, and there are several billion people. Just a tier 2 city in China has 20 million people in it. So that's a big market for not just us, but just globally to the world. And yeah, I mean we're slated to do several more shows before the end of the year. We actually started out the front end of this year slowly, and with less shows, only to pick up the pace at the end of the year. And so we knew that was kind of how we were going to schedule things. Asia is a very challenging market because unlike being in the U.S., there was a point in time where mixed martial arts was banned in 48 of the 50 states. And once Nevada jumped on board, pretty much the rest of the states, they kind of fell like dominoes. And it's really easy for people from the West to say, "Oh, well, you're in Asia, so if you're doing a show in Singapore versus Malaysia versus Vietnam versus Indonesia, it's kind of, in your mind, you might think of it like you just go from one state to the next. But you have to remember that what one championship is doing in Asia, going from country to country, it's not like the athletic commissions in the States and the U.S. here. Look, what we've been able to pull off within, a 6-year history of this company basically is quite outstanding because every country you go to has a unique set of circumstances and a unique set of situations that you have to deal with. And so for us, we'll be expanding to a couple different markets. I think later this year we'll be announcing Vietnam, possibly Korea, and then obviously we've opened up an office in China, in Shanghai. So there's a push for us in China as well.
UFC just had a show out there, and they're obviously they're pretty ecstatic about the results of the fights and the impact that they made. Where do they stand in regards to I guess how ESPN's called the leader? We hear you're the leader out in Asia, but is the UFC gaining traction? Is there enough room for both of the organizations to flourish?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about gaining traction, losing traction, or anything like that. Obviously, in Singapore, our company's based in Singapore. We're based in Southeast Asia, so all the countries surrounding that, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Indonesia, Malaysia, and as you continue springing out, like obviously that's where we're located. That would be the equivalent of one championship doing a show in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. It's you're on somebody else's home turf. You can look at things like ratings on television and whatnot, and it's just we offer a different product out there. But I'll say this: like I'm a fan of competition. I believe in competition. I actually believe that the UFC being in Asia and the competition, having a duopoly of two global organizations over there only increases the awareness of MMA overall. And it just ends up helping both organizations out, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. But I guess one championship is still the leader in Asia. Can you say that?
Yeah. I mean, you can look at. We have like different metrics that we measure ourselves by. Like we've had shows that on, one championship broadcasts in 118 countries, and we have media deals with local partners in many of the regions where we broadcast. We have deals with regional partners in many of these different places. So we might, for example, broadcast in the Philippines on ABS-CBN, but we might also broadcast there on like Cox Sport or something like that. That's not my specialty within the company, but it's quite a tiered system. So yeah, but I mean, if you look at some of the shows that we've done this year, like we pulled off ratings in the upper 20% on different television shows, on different stations and whatnot. And to see something like that, like the kind of sporting shows and whatnot that we're outperforming, it does show that we have the lion's share in Asia for sure.
I know the bottom line is important for a business, but as far as like what fans look at from North America is the quality of the shows. Angela Lee, we've heard a lot about her and we've seen her fight. She can fight. Great star there for you guys. She headlined your last event. Ben Askren, undefeated fighter. We've seen him. Luis Santos was on your card. Shinya Aoki. But then there always seems to be a huge drop off for the North American fan. Is that something that matters to you? Whether you appeal to the North American fan, which is basically, I guess, the loudest fan out here, versus in Asia, where do they even care? I guess, who the undercard might be or who the first fight on the main card might be, like if they're quality or not in regards to versus the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's not. I understand completely what you're saying, and you're right. American fans are very fickle, and this just isn't Americans, but it's pretty much every country. You're always going to root for your home team, essentially. And it's very rare, like I'll use a UFC example. It's very rare that you can have a guy like a Conor McGregor come from a country like Ireland and then have people all over the world actually care about that one particular guy. Like, he's an Irish fighter, so typically the only people that care about Irish fighters is the Irish. Mm-hmm. And so that's just how things work. But occasionally there are people that break through these barriers. And that's kind of the case with a couple of our champions as well. You see somebody like Angela Lee, a guy like Edward Falayon, who just won our lightweight championship, is a Filipino guy. And his story is amazing story. He's a very captivating individual. Grew up 9 siblings growing up. 5 of them passed away from common illness just because they were so poor that they couldn't afford basic medicine. And parents are illiterate, and you hear these kinds of things, and then you just when you see a person's life story, like that's the kind of story, a homegrown champion from the streets of Baguio who grew up dirt poor that is able to transcend the barriers and become more popular than just with the Filipino fans. And that's essentially what one championship does. Like, we're just building local heroes on that side of the planet, and some of these heroes will transcend beyond borders and become not only important to all the countries in the Asian region, but some of them will also transcend over to the States, and not everybody will. You look at any organization, and the fan base is going to care about certain particular athletes more than the others.
Yeah, like, not to harp on this, but like Ben Askren, we think he's an outstanding fighter. I thought he was a great signing for you, and it sounds like he's really captivated any of the crowds wherever he's been in any of the countries in Asia. But his last opponent wasn't even ranked in the top 100, for example, you know. And so we want to see him get tested, and I think that, along with, because once Chatri did an interview, Sijiatong, saying, hey, you know, we're close to being $1 billion company and everything. Like, you know, we're excited for you guys. We're rooting for you guys. We want to see more of you guys, but we just want to see, I guess, more compelling matchups. I hear that you guys sell out, and everyone, you know, you guys do great out there. But I guess from us as hardcores or MMA junkies, if you will, it's like we just want to see a little bit more competitive matchups with your names, and we want to see bigger names. We are hearing that you guys are competitive in free agency, though, so kudos there.
Yeah, you know what's like on the Ben Askren thing. The thing I was really looking forward to with Ben was a rematch with him and Luis Santos.
Yeah.
And then Luis just lost his last fight to Sebastian, the Swedish fighter. So you know, for me, from a story perspective, I've been really looking forward to that matchup because they have some unfinished business, the two of them, with, you know, the eye poke and all that kind of stuff. And so. Because, you know, if you look at the first match with Ben and Luis, like, Luis was really putting his skill level to the test.
Yep.
And so now that's one of those things that kind of has derailed that. And in my opinion, as a fan, I don't believe that Sebastian is going to be as challenging of a matchup for him as Luis would have been.
Rich Franklin, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. All right, let me turn it over to my co-host, Goes. What do you have for Rich Franklin?
Rich, will we be seeing more grappling matches, more outside-the-box thinking?
Yeah, I think so. You know, with the match that we did with Gary Tonin and Shinya Aoki, I mean, even as an organization, we had our reservations for something like that because, I mean, you're putting a grappling match on an MMA card essentially, and you know, I mean, if you've ever watched grappling matches, like they can be quite the snooze fest sometimes, but that ended up being a really well matched grappling match between those two guys, and I was sitting there watching it cage side, and to be real honest, I really enjoyed it. And I think that the feedback that we got from the fans is that they enjoyed seeing it as well. So I believe that you're going to start seeing more things like that. On our card coming up in Myanmar, we have a traditional Lethwei bout, which is the traditional martial art of Myanmar, and so it'll be interesting to see that. Now, it won't be in its purest form because, like, in Lethwei, for example, in that martial art, you can actually headbutt. The fighters can headbutt each other, and
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, they don't just, like, you know, clinch and maybe throw a little headbutt in here and there. I've seen athletes in matches over there that will literally dive forward with their head as an attacking spear. So, you know, it's a traditional bout, but we have to obviously you know, slightly amend the rules so that it's as safe as possible within the organization. But yeah, I think you'll see us paying tribute to some of the local martial arts, which is really cool because you'll see some things that you may not otherwise be exposed to, as well as some grappling super matches in the future.
In fact, if I may chime in, Go, sorry to hijack here, but it's either that martial art or another martial art based in Japan where the fight doesn't end unless you get knocked out twice.
Really?
How crazy is that? Have you heard that, Rich?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not traditional Lethwei because if you get knocked out, you get knocked out. But I do know this. I do know in Lethwei that you can actually, your corner can call a timeout. And so it is possible that you got knocked out and then your corner call a timeout and you know, survive through that and then could get knocked out again. It's possible within that traditional sport.
Oh, wow. Hey, Rich, so I've seen a lot of your cards, and the one thing that stands out to me is when you guys go to the Philippines, it feels like a whole different animal. Like, everything just gets moved up a notch. Are the Philippines kind of like North America, Las Vegas, for instance, you know, where everybody wants to fight there?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're more keen to the fight scene. They've been exposed to MMA. I didn't realize how well known I was, for example, in the Philippines until I went there. And I just, you know, I'm in a foreign country, and so I get recognized in places like a Singapore or like a Malaysia, and it's very weird because you're walking around like, how do these people even know who I am? But it wasn't until the first time I went to the Philippines and I was walking around a mall, and then I got stopped. so many times that I ended up having to leave them all. And it just, you know, it was like, you start thinking, like, how does this happen? And God forbid you try to walk somewhere with somebody like Brandon Vera over in the Philippines.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard about that. Speaking of one of the biggest stars in your organizations, tell us about Angela Lee. If she's headlining over Ben Askren, that's telling us something. We know she's undefeated. We know she's very, very popular, but just how big of a superstar is she in Asia?
She's a big superstar because the culture in Asia, I think, like somebody like Angela Lee, or, you know, when you look at some of the women's champions over in the States here, like in the UFC, they become a beacon for like empowerment to women. But that takes on a whole different meaning over in Asia. And you see, I mean, you not only see the male fans that are really interested in seeing two girls scrap that can just, you know, put on a good show, that are talented, but these women, they truly transcend to something else, because they're, you know, there's an entire female population that looks to them and says, man, I could aspire to be something like this.
Is she can she reach that Ronda Rousey superstardom, for example? I mean, with Ronda being out, could she maybe be the biggest sports biggest star in female combat sports?
I would imagine on that side of the planet, she probably is the most recognizable name in, you know, female combat sports. It's just within the year that she's had her belt, you go, like, if I'm sitting in a cab in Singapore, for example, and I strike up a conversation with the driver, it's gone from a year ago, people not even knowing who that girl was, to pretty much like I say, oh, you know, they ask what you do for a living. I work for One Championship, and they're like, oh yeah, Angela Lee, I just saw, and people know her. The masses know her.
Are the athletes there, the superstar athletes there, do they become like diva-ish and difficult, like a lot of the stars, not just in MMA but in other sports here in North America, can become? Like, how do they treat their superstardom? And you know, because like you said, I mean, not even being able to walk in a mall, you know, and that's you being retired a few years. I wonder what it's like for Vera and some of the others.
Yeah, it's not, but that's just in the Philippines. Any other country that I go to, I might get recognized a half a dozen times, and you know, stopped here and there, and a fan say, hey, do you mind if I get a picture? Like, it's, you know, and even with somebody like Brandon, it's not until you're actually in the Philippines that becomes an issue. So the rest of the athletes and stuff on our cards, like, no, we don't, you know, we don't have much issues with them, and you know, these guys, like, they'll go back to their home countries, and it's quite a different level for them. I mean, like you guys talked about Aguilan Thani before. You know, Aguilan had an undefeated record, worked his way up to 6-0. He you know, in my opinion, as a fighter, he's, you know, Ben Askren is just on a whole different level, and I think that was a lesson that he quickly learned. But being a Malaysian fighter, like, the Malaysians have never experienced anything like that before. So even in losing his competition with Ben, like, he went back to his home country and was welcomed with you know, parades, basically. Like, the people there were proud of him for even making it to that level. And I believe that you give a guy like Aguilan Thani, he's a talented individual. You just give him some more time to develop, and you'll eventually see him fighting for a title again.
Rich, thanks for the time, for joining us here on MMA Junkie Radio. We're always learning more about One Championship when you and Lauren and some of the other execs come on, so we appreciate your time, and I want you to enjoy your weekend.
Hey. Yeah, anytime, man. You guys ever need me to come back on, just let me know, let Lauren know, whatever, and I'll be happy to do so, bud.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Folks, their next show will be One Championship 56 coming up on June 30th. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. All right, folks, we're going to do an overtime on our Facebook official page. SiriusXM audience will join you on Monday, and anybody in Costa Mesa on Saturday, go meet TJ Dillashaw, Cub Swanson, Michael Bisping, UFC Gym in Costa Mesa.
Got a whole lot of money that's ready to burn, so get those stakes up higher. There's 1,000 pretty women waiting out there.
Guys, we're there for overtime.
All right, little overtime here. We want to do our tough recap with Jason B. We set it up. We want to execute it. Plus, we have MMA history today, and Ghost says we have a good one. Let's get that one out of the way. What do we have for today?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. So June 23rd, 2002. Any guesses on what this might be?
What's the date again? June 24th. Oh, sorry. What's the year again? I know the date.
2002.
So that's Tito, Chuck, and Randy times. Ghost said we have a real good one today, so it must involve a big name.
Do you want a hint?
Yeah, give me a hint.
It involves Pride.
Okay. June. Fedor and Krokout finally fought? No, it was too soon for that. Fedor and Big Nog fought?
Nope.
Sakuraba beat yet another Gracie?
You and I are about to fight if you don't get this.
On June 23rd, 2002?
Well, no. It's a tough one, but...
I'll give it to
no
you.
more guesses.
Here's another hint. Here's another one more hint.
All right.
We used to have one of these two fighters on every Friday.
Don Fry and Takayama?
Yep. One of the... I don't want to say the greatest fights of all time, but it was unique.
A sequence within a fight.
Just brawl.
It was basically like two hockey guys, except with MMA gloves and with MMA skills.
They should be on Richard Hunter's phone booth fighting logo. I think those two, because that's what they fought in that night.
Yeah, that was legit.
Yeah.
Anything else, goes?
That's it.
All right. So follow them on Twitter at MMA History Today. And so if you're still listening, the SiriusXM audience just got the tail end, but on June 24th, so in other words, tomorrow in Costa Mesa at the UFC Gym in Costa Mesa, the address 2860 Harbor Boulevard. It'll be a grand opening for co-owners Michael Bisping and Cub Swanson. That's their gym, and they'll also have Alberta Mina and TJ Dillashaw in attendance, guys.
Yep.
So come meet all four of them. Come check out the 18,000 square foot gym that's got strength training, cardio machines. You can sign up for some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or some cardio kickboxing. They seem to have it all there.
Doors open at 8 a.m.
And, yeah, it should be some fun times. Of course, there's Bellator and UFC this weekend. Bellator is tomorrow. It's their pay-per-view with Fedor Emelianenko and Matt Mitrione, Chael Sonnen, and Wanderlei Silva, along with 3 world title fights. Spike has you for the main event for one of the title fights. Ryan Bader challenging Phil Davis for the light heavyweight title. However, the rest of the card is a pay-per-view. You'll have to order that. Check it out. Support. And lastly, the UFC finishing the weekend strong with UFC Fight Night 112, headlined by Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa. There's also Johnny Hendricks and Tim Boetsch, Felice Herrig and Justine Kish, Alex Garcia and Tim Means, BJ Penn, Dennis Seaver, Eric Koch and Clay Guida. Marvin Vittori's back goes. He'll be fighting Vitor Miranda. Carlos Esparza versus Marina Moraz is on the card. So definitely sprinkled in some names there on that fight card.
Let me ask you something about the UFC gym.
Okay.
If part of the membership was that they had a room where every pay-per-view they show the pay-per-view, and because you're a member you can go in and watch, would you maybe sign up for the UFC gym versus like a Planet Fitness or something like that, or 24-hour fitness?
Maybe,
being
yeah.
an MMA fan.
Yeah, because there's probably a good feeling
spot.
that the owners might be there to host as well, or they may just, from time to time make it pretty special.
Like, let's say a gym membership, what is it every month? I mean, ours is $10.
When I left, yeah, Planet Fitness is tough to top for the $10. So here they actually had it in the article. It's like 60 or 70 is their gym membership. I just don't know what that includes. But if that includes like unlimited Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or unlimited cardio kickboxing, along with having your weights and plus this pay-per-view possibility, then that's not a bad deal.
Let's just say it's 60, but for 80, you get to watch every pay-per-view in their room or whatever. Would you just pay the?
I'd probably do it for a year. just to see if I wind up doing it or not.
You're gonna watch it with a bunch of MMA fans, so it should be fun, right?
Yeah, but it's also fun to be on your own couch with your buddies, and if they
True.
can't get in, then I'd probably give it a year and see, well, I only made it to 4 events, just do the 60 next year. But if I'm getting there a lot, making new friends, then probably renew it and check it out. All right, so we're going to close up with, again, Sunday is UFC Fight Night 112. A couple other announcements. We'll be here next week, Monday and Tuesday only. So we'll be here to recap Bellator NYC, Bellator 180, and UFC Fight Night 112. And then after that, we'll take Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off. And we'll be back the following Monday for International Fight Week. And I don't know if there's any. Oh, I did want to tell you all. I mentioned One Championship, and I believe them and Flo are going to be working together or are working together. Their next event is June 30th. So for more details, actually I'll give you the details on Monday because there's start times that'll throw you off. But they're in Beijing, China, for that fight card. And like I said, the last one had Askren Lee, the grappling match with Aoki. So that was a nice effort on their behalf. Sometimes I'll look and there's just names I can't get excited about to wake up at 5 a.m. So I want to see more of those. If they're valuing themselves as a billion-dollar company, they should be trying to import more talent or grow that talent. I don't know what's taking so long. Shouldn't we have heard of more Angela Lees and more other different fighters out there that,
But if they're not beating names that you know as well, then
thing.
it's not really.
Yeah. So that'll be that. All right. Let's talk to Jason B., the intern, a recap of episode 10, The Ultimate Fighters Season 25 Redemption Season. There was 2 fights. Take it away, Jason B. What you got? Joining us now is Jason the intern to recap episode 10 of the most recent Ultimate Fighter episode. And, of course, we know we're in season 25. The Redemption, 2 fights. Take it away, Jason. What catch us up? What happened?
Episode 10, went down yesterday. And we're in the quarterfinal round. And it was a night of good fights, really good fights. The first one on the ballot was Haider Hassan, who, of course, lost to Diego Lima in the preliminary rounds, but ended up getting the wild card spot and knocking out Joe Daddy Stevenson. So now he advanced to the quarterfinal round, and he's versus Jesse Taylor, a strong wrestler. And the fights got going right off the bat as soon as the Ultimate Fighter started on TV. So I like that. They jumped right into the fights, and we got a full episode of fights. And right off the bat, man, Jesse.
Hey guys, I don't know what happened. I hate to break this, but it says the file is corrupted. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
You hung up on Jason again, then? Huh?
Jason's at.
I thought we were gonna mislead the audience and act like Jason was there, and then Danny sells me out with that whole little pre-record saying the exact same thing I just said. I thought, oh man, that's horrible. But on top of all that, we lost the recording, huh?
Well, we didn't lose it. It's just the computer just crapped out. It said file, bad file.
All right. So listen, Jason did do it. And we're going to recap it because I'm not going to send this all the way to fucking Monday. Plus, we got vacation. We'll forget. So, Goes and I will recap it. For one, Goes, fun season. There's no way around it.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Good season so far. We had 2 fights. Let's see here. First one was Haider Hassan and Jesse Taylor. And Haider was the last hope for Cody Garbrandt's team. He, of course, heavy hands, wants to strike. Jesse makes no bones about it. He wants to grapple. And he's with Team Dillashaw. What we said during the Jason B spot was, when they came out, I thought Hassan was too aggressive, and I think he just turned on that little microchip, the fight or flight for Jesse.
Yeah.
Which meant, whoa, that kind of, you're closing the distance, I'm coming in after you. And, of course, once he did it, and even though Haider got up the first time, he just had some success. He sapped up some of his energy. He scored some points. The clock was wound up. The judges started, leaning towards moving that pendulum over towards Taylor. So I thought it was a bad strategy. I think with a wrestler that's as aggressive as Taylor, you want to come out and start moving and start giving them a look like, hey, I'm not going to make this easy for you. So right then and there, I had a feeling this is going to end quick, And so he got some down. And Hyder works his way back up. He defended well. But then Jesse, what does he do? He just gets another shot in on him, gets him down, eventually takes his back. He had to struggle a little bit to get the rear naked choke, but he was able to secure. Hyder was doing a great job of fighting off the hands. And in one of those, when he went under with his left, he tucked in his right. And he used his chin in the back of Hyder's head to basically block Hyder's ability to, peel off one of those arms and fight Z hands, like you often hear them say. So I thought it was quick, to the point. Taylor gets out of there unscathed. I mean, he could not have written a better script, but I think that slight mistake at the beginning from Hyder just made it even that much easier for him, for Taylor.
I thought when he fought off the first takedown, like a light bulb should have gone off. Because if you see John Fitch, right, that's what he wants. He wants to take down. But he comes in and he sets it up with a couple punches.
Right.
It's nothing you're going to be that afraid of, but he does throw him. Jesse just comes out and tries to tackle him.
Right.
So I think when he missed, a light bulb should have gone off in Hyder's head and said, whoa, all right, he's not messing around. I got to make the adjustments. For one, just get lower in your stance, But it was almost like he pretended like it just didn't happen, and he just went back with the same thing, eventually got taken down. I was a little disappointed in that because I think Hyder's a better fighter than that. But, I mean, look at Jesse. He's made it through these fights, and he's not really taken much damage at all. I think he's in a great spot.
He could not have written a better script for himself, Jesse Taylor. So we know he moves on. He's a semifinalist. In the other fight, we had James Krause versus Ramsey Nijem. Well, what I'll disagree with is they kept saying this should have been the final. I'm thinking, dude, Eddie Gordon recently won a season at middleweight. I think he's a pretty legit fighter. He hasn't had the best run in the UFC, but I didn't think the other guys were like that automatic. Plus, Jesse Taylor's been pretty impressive as well. So why they were saying that, look, the matchups are the matchups, but regardless, they did treat us to a great fight. We'll sum it up quickly. Krause won round 1. Ramsey won round 2. But going into round 3,
guys won close.
Ramsey was more depleted in his energy. And Krause was able to get the takedown. On Tough Talk, Ramsey said he underestimated his wrestling, but that's what made the difference. Not only was he able to take him down, he was able to hold him down. Because Ramsey, off his back, isn't as strong as Ramsey, on top. He's pretty vicious with his ground and pound, but he was just exhausted. And so Krause won that round. He moves on, and now we're left with who the semifinals are going to be. At this point, there's no Team Garbrandt, but they still bring Cody in. I guess he's a coach. He needs to be in there. And the only thing I'm thinking is I wonder if Dillashaw is going to side and try and make things easy for Taylor. They used to wrestle together, Cal State Fullerton. Is he holding on to any of that? I shouldn't even say that because TJ seems to be pretty fair, split right down the middle. And the input from Garbrandt is why not get the grapplers together, Galicchio and Taylor, and keep the strikers apart in Diego and Krause. TJ, if I'm not mistaken, wanted
basically in his eyes the number 1 and the number 2 seed.
He wanted Galicchio and Krause. He thought Krause was seeded 1 and Galicchio 4, and then Taylor to fight Lima.
I kind of agreed with him.
They changed it all up, and it's Taylor and Krause. So it's not what neither one wanted. It's what Dana wanted, and that turned out to be Krause versus who is it, guys?
In the final?
Yeah.
It's what the fuck?
I'm confused. It's Krause.
You just kind of confused me. Okay, so what they want?
It's Krause versus Lima? Taylor and Lima versus Galicchio. Yeah, that's what it is.
Lima versus Galicchio.
So it's what neither
and they
coach
get along
wanted.
Great in the house too. It's funny.
They get along great, and they did ask Taylor on Tough Talk, "Hey, what would you have thought of this?" And he goes, "Well, we actually trained together, Team Quest, Dan Henderson's Team Quest." So he goes, "I wouldn't have wanted it unless it went to the final." I think it would have been fun to see them grapple and have the other guy strike, but if Dana says I was looking for the best matchups, to me it sounds like he wants Lima to eliminate Galicchio and probably Krause to eliminate JT. Okay. But the way JT just seems to be fighting, I don't know that's that big of a slam dunk, and I don't think they still harbor any feelings towards him because why would they have
they would have brought him back,
right?
But
so I don't know. That confused me a little bit that they didn't go with either one of the proposed matchups from the coaches.
Jason made a good point in his breakdown, and he was saying he feels like Ramsey, because of his performance, may come back. And I agree with that, but you know where he even took it another level, which I thought was brilliant, was on Tough Talk when he mentioned he believed he lost the fight because he was going for the finish, because he was trying to take chances. And I think that's something, if you watch the fight, you would agree, yeah. Some of the chances he took put himself in a bad spot. And I think Dana White has a soft spot for people who do try and put it all out. So I think he will be back.
He should. That was a great fight. I think he earned his spot. And so next week we have 2 fights left, the semifinals, and I believe they're on separate weeks leading all the way to the tough finale, which is headlined by Michael Johnson and Justin Gaethje. Do you think we got it all of what Jason had to offer?
Well, then they show...
Because he was with us for 8 to 10 minutes, so...
they showed the previews for the next week. And at the end of the episode, they talk about Krause's eye.
Right.
And they make it sound like the doctors are going to push this forward. Everything should be okay. But in the previews for the next week, it seems like he's getting a lot of shit from teammates about the eye and maybe and other injuries or I don't know what. So maybe there's a twist.
Yeah,
I don't
him
know.
and Johnny Nunez are telling each other to fuck off, right?
Yeah, Johnny's like the easiest going guy. So is James. It's really weird that they... those two of all people.
So the only other thing I thought was they teased that one of the fighters may not go, and so if that's it, who comes in? Ramsey off a great fight. Jason noted that Gilbert Smith could unretire because he had a great fight, and of course I keep pushing Eddie Gordon just because I want to say he was upset by Galicchio, but I feel like he's healthy, and it happened such a long time ago. He would be an adequate fight opponent for.
Yeah, if I'm Eddie, I'm saying, didn't that fool just retire? I mean,
JT.
You're done, dog. You just said that.
Yeah. And the last thing, since we're staying overtime, we're just kind of cleaning up the week. I want you to give your final verdict for a topic we started earlier in the week, which was, according to what they said about Jermaine Durandamy and why they strip her, what do you want to apply to Bisping in this situation? So fans are saying, well, why not strip Bisping because he's not fighting Romero? But those haven't been the fights he's been offered, and that's not a brand new division. And Bisping's fought 27 times for the UFC with 20 wins, whereas Jermaine doesn't have that kind of a legacy where she has any weight at all. So you're obviously not stripping Bisping here.
I don't feel like it's Bisping's decision. I really don't. I think at the end of the day, the UFC is going to make him fight who he wants. And when they do that, the same way they tried to do Demetrius, unlike Demetrius, I think Bisping will probably go with it.
But he's stoked they gave him GSP, right?
Yeah.
A, he's not Romero, and B, he gets paid more than fighting Romero. However, if Dana said goes, who do you think Bisping should fight next? Who do you give him?
I like Yoel.
Yoel? So do I. I'll agree with you there. Conor. They're saying strip Conor. He's not fighting the number 1 guy. He's off boxing, and when he comes back, it could be Nate. Right now, who's the number 1 contender? Is it Ferguson because Khabib didn't show to the dance? So when Conor fights, that's who you want?
It's almost like a little piece of the fight happened, and Khabib didn't show up. So it's got to be Tony.
Okay. And lastly, in the DJ situation, they're offering him TJ, although I'm hearing that show in Seattle, UFC 215, it may either get canceled or they may pick another location. But regardless, they wanted him to headline and versus TJ Dillashaw. He said, I want to fight Borg, who, if they say goes, you're the arbitrator, you decide, what would you have decided on?
Well, I'd have to sit there and go, what's the future of this company? What are we doing? Because if these rankings mean anything, then yeah, we got to give them board guys. But if we're just going to be moving things around in other divisions,
well, they just put out this statement that says, "Hey, the number 1 contender that they feel so strong about." So
yeah, then I'd say we got to do Borg.
Okay,
but is Borg DJ going to sell in Seattle as a main event?
Right. I would say that on this one, there's kind of like a bridging of the gap, and I would say on this one, I'd go, listen, DJ, it's going to be TJ. However, we're going to give you your pay-per-view points, and we're going to make you the co-main event of an upcoming big card so that you can make your dough as well, you know? And we're going to put Borg on the same card so that if TJ doesn't make weight, well, hopefully Borg does. Now, I know that he made the point, hey, I thought we were professional. I thought these guys are going to make. There are no guarantees because whoever we give him, Borg or Dillashaw or anybody else, the second coming of Benavidez, doesn't matter. there is no guarantee that that person may make weight. There's just no guarantees, really. So that's the best we can do is just have someone ready for you in case this fighter A can't do it, then fighter B's got to do it. And, yeah, you may have to train for both guys, but guess what? Borg's training for someone too. You know, so and by the way, you're DJ. You're great. So that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. But we're giving you your pay-per-view points, and so you're getting paid. So I think on that one, that's how I would try and mediate.
I mean, even at that, what is the UFC promise worth anyways at any point?
Yeah,
how many fighters come on here and, like, wasn't Cub on here, a week and a half ago? He said he was told he was going to get a title shot, right? Like, I mean.
Well, that's if Jose won.
He said in the past, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what is the promise worth anyway?
Happy birthday to Cold Coffee.
Happy birthday.
Ken Hathaway. And the last thing I was trying to do was I wanted to show you something on Facebook, but it looks like we're not gonna have enough time. Or might we? Let's see. This is an overtime on a Friday. Danny and Goes, you guys ready to go? Or?
Yeah, I'm running out of space here.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
How much time do I have?
It's pretty much already up.
Okay. But then we're out of here. Have a nice weekend. Keep it locked on MMA Junkie throughout the weekend. And next weekend, maybe I'll do live reads here of some of these comments on Facebook. We'll try and be more interactive with Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter comments. There's some good ones that I see at the end of the show, and I like them. And so that's it. All right, folks. See you on Monday. Be champions.
Sorry about that, guys. I have no